John Smoltz is on the program now. Hall of Famer, World Series champ, former Cy Young winner. He'll be on the call. The World Series, along with the play-by-play voice, Joe Davis. Game 1 between the Phillies and Astros starts Friday at 8 Eastern on Fox. John, I've mentioned this a couple of times. You did a wonderful job taking us through the at-bat with Bryce Harper when he homered off Suarez. I also was wondering, as a former pitcher, when you're on the mound, are you thinking the way a hitter might be thinking?
In those situations in the playoffs, the one thing, once you've been there, done that, you realize that you only are thinking, you learn to think, where can the damage be done and avoid the damage. So when you're pitching in the regular season, you pitch to a scouting report, the hitters are a little bit different. Of course, your pitching is going to be a little bit different. When you get in the postseason, everything is magnified, everything stops to think more. And I realized, having gone through many postseason games, where that damage was and where I didn't want to get beat. So I kind of look at it from both ends: what a pitcher's strengths are and what a hitter's strengths are. But more importantly, I learned, 2016 was my first World Series, and that home run off of Chapman was the exact spot where the only way he could have hit a home run to tie the game up. And so those kind of things you learn once you go through it. But when you're in it for the first time and you're pitching for the first time, everything is so fast, it's magnified, and you lose that time and space of the information that you're given beforehand. So that's kind of how I look at it when I'm broadcasting, because I've been through so many of those experiences before.
Well, we always talk about hitters guessing. Do pitchers guess?
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, the problem today, and I only say problem not because it's a real problem, it's just there's so much information that you can get overloaded, and you can either be a pitcher that whatever they put down you throw, or you could be a pitcher that overthinks having so much information you're outguessing yourself. So the bottom line is, if you're not totally committed to a pitch or a location, usually bad things happen. And the same thing can be said if there's so much information, you're not following what that hitter's doing in that given day. So that information might be great over 162, but that given day, his bat might be slow, or he might be opening up. And the same thing for a pitcher. If you're a hitter, you're trying to follow what that pitcher's information is, but what if he's not? What if his slider's not very good, or his fastball? So those things, you got to be careful when you're gathering the information that they're not absolutes, so that day stands on its own. And I think we lose a little bit of that sometimes when it comes to so much information, a lot of good information, but we got to remember that game is an independent game of itself and not in a bucket of 162.
What's different about Harper, let's say now, as opposed to 3, 4, 5 years ago, if anything?
He's so seasoned. He has been the guy that has learned through his experiences, right? I mean, he was not right coming into this postseason, and you could understand why. He was hurt, trying to regain his swing in a short period of time. Boy, did he get right at the right time. Mechanically, he's connected now more than ever with, I guess you could say, some of his limitations, meaning it's actually helped him go the other way, swing big early, try to do damage early, and then let the at-bat come to him so that he's not trying to do the same thing over and over again. And so that kind of scenario, when you get to the postseason, and listen, nobody has had more on him from an expectation standpoint since he was thrust into this game. He's delivered under every circumstance in Philadelphia on this mega contract that is just, and it's impossible to think that he could be the sole reason that Philly wins the World Series. But you know what? That swing gives them a chance.
He's John Smoltz, the Hall of Famer. If I would have told you a month ago, Phillies Astros World Series, you would have said?
You're half right. I mean, the new playoff system, really. I don't think this will be the norm. I think last year the Atlanta Braves won the most improbable World Series ever. If Philadelphia wins, you could say that trumps it because they had an extra playoff round. They were on the road forever. They had to beat some pretty good teams to do that, and if they beat the Houston Astros, you could make the argument it's the most improbable World Series that I've seen in my lifetime because of the track of how tough it was to get to this point, and in September, how absolutely long shot they were, kind of like the Braves were last year. So it really is a credit to how they have done this and not given up hope and gained confidence in an incredible way.
Is this I'll root for the Phillies because I can't root for the Astros? Are we still there, you think, with the national perspective on the Astros and what happened a few years ago?
We shouldn't be. This is the greatest way to show yourself as an organization why that was a blip and why now the consistency with a different roster and different narratives, this is no longer part of that narrative. They have proven. If you want to prove, whether it's an individual hitter who got busted for steroids, goes on the rest of his career, he's clean, and he has the numbers he has, that's how you answer the critics. What I believe Houston's done, and Dusty Baker deserves such a huge credit, they've answered the critics. It wasn't a one-off. They have dominated with a different roster and a philosophy that works. Come postseason, it works. And I'm telling you, this is how you answer it. They've done an incredible job.
Are you all in on the playoff format? It felt like, well, the Dodgers were knocked out, and then everybody had a problem with the playoff format.
I love it. I think the playoff format over time. Look, it's going to take a little bit to see the history of something. When you play 162 games, you need to be rewarded. And this is a great rewarded system for the two best records in each league. It just so happens that this year the two best records in the National League didn't get there. Everyone's talking about the layoff. Everyone's talking about the differences that have come. That will iron itself out. I love the playoff format. I would have been shocked if you would have told me that the potential first year we could have a team that the last team to get in to win it. I think that would shock everybody. But in the future, you're going to see now what Philly's done. It's going to give a lot of teams hope to say, whatever we need to do, let's get in and look at what Philly did. Look at what San Diego did. But for the most part, I think it's going to reward the teams that have the best year and the best resources, because you got to utilize a lot of resources to beat those teams.
If you were Aaron Judge, you do what?
You shock the world and go to the Mets. No. I could actually see a scenario where DeGrom and Judge actually flip teams, which would really set New York on its ear. No, if you're Aaron Judge, the biggest thing is it is one of the most pressure-packed years. It's probably the greatest timed year that you could have given the circumstances of your contract.
If I said you could have DeGrom or Judge for the rest of their careers right now, you had to choose.
Yeah, it really depends on where. So if I'm the Yankees, Judge is probably the most impactful player for not only your city but your fan base, and I think you got to surround Judge with a little bit more contact in the lineup, and then Judge is going to have a chance to win the World Series. Look, I've been a fan of his ever since he stepped on the field. I think he does everything in about the right way you can do it. We don't have a lot of guys his size being successful. So, as a broadcaster, you don't really root for a scenario, but as a fan of the game, which I still am, I root for players to, A, stay healthy and be able to maximize their opportunities, and he certainly did. Now, they'll talk about the postseason a little bit, but that's a microcosm of so many different things. You want a guy that's going to show up in the regular season and produce, and he did. and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I can't give him 10 years, John.
No. No, I don't think that's going to be the case unless it's somewhere else, and we don't anticipate where that's going to be. But I think there's a contract that, with his age and his size and his history, will definitely reward one of the greatest years I have ever seen a player have in this modern era.
See, and people say, is that the greatest season ever? And I say, well, is that better than what Shohei Ohtani did the previous year?
It's close. See, that argument stands in almost like a sphere by itself, because we've never seen a player come close to doing what Ohtani did. So Ohtani is going to be that separate, entity until we get someone close enough to put it even in great, better perspective.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think Ohtani, unfortunately this year, he just ran into Judge.
Hey, we'll be watching. Great to talk to you as always. Safe travels to Houston.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
John Smoltz, he'll be on the call. Game 1 tomorrow night in Houston, 8 Eastern on Fox.